The call from beyond. The vastness of space had never felt so cold. The Galactic Concordat, an alliance of the 7 most advanced civilizations in the known universe, had existed for millennia, guiding the evolution of countless species across thousands of star systems. For eons, they had been the undisputed masters of their realm. Their technologies so advanced that many primitive worlds worshipped them as gods. The Aetheri with their crystalline bodies and mastery of quantum mechanics. The Vor Collective, a hive mind spanning 12 star systems. The Meridians, ancient beings of pure energy who had transcended physical form. The Quilathi, masters of biological science who had engineered their own immortality. The Talos, synthetic beings who had outlived their creators. The Gen Empire, warriors whose battle fleets could shatter moons. And finally, the Elders, the oldest of them all, mysterious and unfathomable, even to their peers. Together, they had maintained peace for 10,000 years. Until the void came. It began at the edges of known space, a darkness that consumed light, matter, and energy. Entire solar systems vanished without a trace. The void defied all known laws of physics, expanding at an impossible rate, devouring everything in its path without discrimination or mercy. The Galactic Concordat, for all their power and knowledge, found themselves facing an enemy they could not understand, let alone defeat. Their weapons, capable of destroying stars, passed through the void without effect. Their shields, designed to withstand supernovas, crumbled at its slightest touch. Their greatest minds, who had unraveled the secrets of creation itself, could not comprehend its nature. For the first time in their long history, the most advanced species in the galaxy knew fear. On the world of Arcadia, the central meeting place of the Concordat, representatives gathered in emergency session. The great chamber, carved from a single massive crystal, pulsed with anxious energy as the delegates argued. The void has consumed the Gen's outer colonies, reported Admiral Kavash, his metallic skin reflecting the dim light. 3 billion lives lost in mere hours. Hazela, representative of the Quilathi, raised her tentacled limb. Our analysis shows the void will reach the inner systems within 6 standard months. We have begun evacuating, but there is nowhere to go. The void is approaching from all directions simultaneously. This is impossible, hissed Elder Thorak, their ancient form shimmering with agitation. Nothing can exist in such a state. It violates every natural law. Yet it exists, countered Merid 9, the Meridian representative, a swirling vortex of blue energy. And it is coming. The debate raged for days. Plans were proposed and discarded. Weapons were designed and failed. Ships were dispatched and never returned. The greatest civilizations in the galaxy found themselves helpless before an incomprehensible threat. Then, from the communications array, came a signal. Faint, primitive, using technology the Concordat had abandoned millennia ago. "What is this?" demanded Tala. The technician, a young Aetheri named Shar, manipulated the crystal controls. It's coming from a system at the edge of the galaxy, an unaligned world. "Put it through," ordered Elder Thorak. The message was crude, simple radio waves encoded with basic binary, but its content stunned the assembled delegates into silence. "This is Earth control to any receiving civilizations. We have detected unusual gravitational anomalies and radiation signatures at the galactic rim. Our scientists believe something catastrophic is occurring. We offer our assistance. Please respond with coordinates if aid is needed." There was a moment of stunned silence, then laughter, cold, dismissive, incredulous. "Earth?" sneered Admiral Kavash. "That primitive backwater. They've barely achieved interplanetary travel. They still use combustion engines and silicon-based computing," added Sala with contempt. "What possible assistance could they offer?" Elder Thorak raised a withered hand for silence. "In our desperation, we have considered every option, no matter how unlikely. Let us at least hear what these humans, believe they can contribute. Despite objections, a response was sent. The coordinates of the next predicted void expansion were transmitted, along with data on the phenomenon itself. It was, many felt, a waste of precious time. But with no other options, even the slimmest hope seemed worth pursuing. The reply came 3 Earth days later. Message received. Data analyzed. We have an idea. Deploying fleet immediately. ETA 14 days to coordinates. Please stand by. The pronouncement was met with disbelief. Fleet, scoffed Admiral Kavash. What fleet? Their military vessels can barely reach their own moon. Xala's tentacles writhed with amusement. They must be delusional. The journey from Earth to the target zone would take years using their primitive technology. Yet precisely 14 Earth days later, sensors detected an approaching fleet of vessels, unlike anything the Concordat had ever seen. Crude by their standards, metal hulls, nuclear propulsion, primitive weapons, but moving at speeds impossible for such technology. Hundreds of ships, carrying thousands of humans, had somehow traversed half a galaxy in 2 weeks. As the fleet took position near the void's predicted emergence point, communications opened again. Earth Fleet to Galactic Concordat. We are in position and prepared to implement Operation Lightbringer. Please clear all forces from the area. We cannot guarantee their safety. Elder Thorak personally responded, curiosity overcoming caution. Human fleet, this is the Galactic Concordat. Your presence is unexpected. What is Operation Lightbringer? And how do you propose to combat a phenomenon that has resisted our most advanced technologies? There was a pause before the reply came. With respect, Elder, we're going to try something simple. Sometimes the most complex problems have the most basic solutions. We noticed something in your data that you missed. The audacity of the statement caused outrage among the Concordat representatives. These primitive beings, suggesting they had noticed something the greatest minds in the galaxy had overlooked. It was absurd. And yet, as the void began to manifest, a creeping darkness that seemed to devour reality itself, the human fleet moved with surprising coordination. Their ships, forming a precise geometric pattern, deployed what appeared to be rudimentary nuclear devices. They're going to use atomic weapons, gasped Xala. Those haven't been used in war for millions of years. They're hopelessly ineffective against something like the void. But something unexpected happened. As the nuclear devices detonated in sequence, they created a cascading wave of energy, not directed at the void itself, but at the space around it. Readings from Concordat sensors showed bizarre fluctuations in the fabric of reality. What are they doing? Demanded Kavash, his metallic face contorted in confusion. Shar, the young Aetheri technician, studied his readings with growing excitement. They're creating a resonance field. The nuclear detonations are generating a specific pattern of subspace vibrations that's affecting the void's expansion. Indeed, for the first time since its appearance, the void's advance had slowed. It still consumed everything it touched, but its expansion rate had decreased dramatically. Transmission came from the human fleet's command ship. Phase 1 successful. The void's expansion has been reduced by 60%. Moving to Phase 2. Smaller vessels now broke from the fleet's formation, approaching the void's perimeter. Each carried what appeared to be a simple probe, primitive by Concordat standards, little more than metal shells containing basic sensors and transmission equipment. They're sending probes into the void. Xala sounded incredulous. We've lost thousands of advanced drones trying to gather data. Those primitive devices won't last seconds. But as the probes entered the darkness, they continued to transmit. Simple data streams flowed back to the human fleet. Temperature readings, radiation levels, spatial coordinates. Information that the Concordat's sophisticated sensors had been unable to capture. How is this possible? Whispered Thorak, ancient eyes wide with astonishment. On the main communication channel, a human voice explained. Your technology is too advanced. The void seems to react to complexity. The more sophisticated the system, the more quickly it's consumed. Our primitive technology is simple enough to exist briefly within the void, gathering crucial data before it's destroyed. This revelation stunned the Concordat delegates. Their greatest advantage, their technological supremacy, had become their greatest weakness against this enemy. The human fleet continued its work, gathering data, mapping the void's internal structure, identifying patterns that had eluded the greatest minds in the galaxy. With each passing hour, their understanding grew, and with it, a plan began to take shape. But the void was not passive. As if sensing the threat, it suddenly accelerated its expansion, lashing out with tendrils of absolute darkness. Several human ships were caught and instantly obliterated, their crews having no time to escape. Earth fleet, withdraw immediately, ordered Elder Thorak. The void is adapting to your presence. You've proven your point, but we cannot allow further loss of life. The response came from a new voice, younger, female, determined. This is Captain Maya Chen of the Earth vessel Prometheus. We anticipated this reaction. The void is a predator. It targets threats. We've learned enough to proceed with Phase 3. Stand by. The remaining human ships reorganized, forming a new pattern. At the center of their formation was a single vessel, larger than the others, its hull covered with what appeared to be primitive solar panels and radio antennas. What are they planning? Murmured Merid 9, the energy being's form pulsating with concern. The answer came as the central ship activated a device that, to the advanced sensors of the Concordat, seemed almost laughably simple, a massive electromagnet, powered by the combined energy of the fleet's nuclear reactors. But its effect was anything but simple. As the magnetic field intensified, the void began to twist, to contort, to fold in upon itself. The darkness that had consumed worlds began to contract rather than expand. Impossible, whispered Admiral Kivash. A mere magnetic field cannot affect something like the void. Shar, studying his readings, looked up with wonder. It's not just a magnetic field. They're generating a specific electromagnetic frequency that's creating a resonance with the void's own energy signature. They're using the void's power against itself. For hours, the human fleet maintained their position, their crude but effective technology slowly forcing the void to compress. Smaller and smaller it became, until finally, with a flash of light that momentarily blinded even the Concordat's protected sensors, it collapsed into a singularity the size of a grain of sand, and then vanished entirely. Silence fell across the Concordat communication channels. Elder Thorak was the first to speak, his ancient voice trembling with emotion. Human fleet, you have done the impossible. You have saved not just our civilizations, but countless others. The Galactic Concordat owes you a debt that can never be repaid. The response was simple, carrying none of the grandeur or formality the Concordat was accustomed to. Just doing what neighbors do, Elder. When someone's in trouble, you help. That's the human way. As the human fleet prepared to return to Earth, a final message was transmitted to the Concordat. This was just one void incursion. Our scientists believe there will be others. We'd like to propose an alliance. Your advanced knowledge combined with our different perspective. Together, we might be able to understand these phenomena and protect the galaxy from future threats. The proposal was unprecedented. Never in its long history had the Concordat considered an alliance with a species so technologically inferior. And yet, these humans had succeeded where the 7 most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had failed. Perhaps, Elder Thorak reflected, it was time for the Concordat to reconsider what truly constituted advancement. Defiance of the impossible. 6 months after the defeat of the first void incursion, the Great Hall of Arcadia hosted a gathering unlike any in its long history. Alongside the towering forms of the Quillethi and the shimmering energy bodies of the Meridians stood humans, small, fragile-looking beings who, by all rational measures, should have been overlooked in the grand scale of galactic civilization. Yet they were now honored guests, their insights sought by species millions of years, their technological superiors. Dr. Amara Okafor, Earth's lead scientist on the Void research team, stood before the assembled delegates, her dark skin contrasting with the white uniform of the United Earth Defense Force. Despite being dwarfed by the alien representatives surrounding her, she commanded the room with quiet confidence. "Our analysis confirms what we suspected," she explained, manipulating a holographic display with practiced ease. "The void isn't a natural phenomenon. It's a weapon, or more accurately, a tool, being deployed by something outside our universe." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Elder Thorak leaned forward, ancient eyes narrowing. "You suggest an extra-dimensional attack. We have explored other dimensions for millennia, and found nothing capable of such aggression." Amara nodded respectfully. "With all due respect, Elder, you've explored other dimensions using your advanced technology. Technology that, as we've discovered, the void specifically targets. We've been approaching this problem differently." She gestured, and the hologram shifted to display what appeared to be a crude laboratory setup. Physical instruments rather than the quantum computers and psychic enhancers the Concordat typically employed. "Instead of using computational models, we've been conducting physical experiments using analog equipment. No digital components, no quantum processing, just basic electronics and mechanical systems. And we've detected something remarkable." The hologram changed again, showing a waveform that pulsed with an eerie rhythm. "This is the background radiation we've detected at every void emergence point. It's not random, it's a signal, a command structure. Someone or something is controlling these incursions." Admiral Kavash, who had been among the most skeptical of the humans initially, now studied the data with intense focus. "If this is true, then the void isn't just consuming our reality, it's converting it, transforming our universe into what?" Dr. Okafor's expression grew grave. "We believe it's a form of dimensional mining. Our universe has properties that this extra-dimensional entity finds valuable. The void is essentially a harvesting mechanism." The implication sent shockwaves through the assembly. They weren't facing a natural disaster or even a conventional enemy. They were being harvested, their entire reality treated as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. Tazala's tentacles writhed with agitation. "How can we fight something that exists outside our dimensional framework? Even with your innovative approaches, the scale of this threat is beyond comprehension." Captain Maya Chin, who had led the human fleet during the first encounter, stepped forward. Unlike the scientists and diplomats, she carried herself with the unmistakable bearing of a warrior, direct, pragmatic, resolute. "We don't need to fight the entity itself," she stated flatly. "We just need to make the harvesting too costly to continue. Every predator abandons prey that's too difficult to catch." Her audacity, comparing an incomprehensible extra-dimensional being to a mere predator, caused ripples of disbelief among some delegates. Yet others found themselves nodding in agreement. There was a refreshing clarity to the human perspective, a willingness to simplify the seemingly complex that the ancient civilizations had long since lost. "We've developed a strategy," Captain Chen continued, bringing up tactical displays. "A two-pronged approach we're calling Operation Floodlight. First, we deploy a network of early warning beacons using simplified technology to detect void formations before they fully materialize. Second, we create response teams equipped with our electromagnetic disruptors to collapse the voids as they form." The Talos representative, a being of living metal named Synthesis, spoke for the first time. "Your plan has merit, but the scale is impractical. To cover even a fraction of inhabited space would require millions of beacons and thousands of response vessels." Dr. Okafor smiled. "That's where we need the Concordat's help. You can't build the technology. It needs to remain simple enough to evade the void's destructive effect on advanced systems, but you can provide the resources and distribution networks to deploy it galaxy-wide." For the next several hours, the combined human and Concordat teams refined the strategy. The plan was audacious, combining human ingenuity with the vast resources and infrastructure of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Ships were allocated, production facilities repurposed, and training programs established. The Galactic Concordat, which had maintained a rigid hierarchy for thousands of years, found itself reorganizing around a strategy devised by a species that had achieved faster-than-light travel less than a century ago. It was unprecedented, uncomfortable, and yet undeniably necessary. As the session concluded, Elder Thorak approached Dr. Okafor and Captain Chen privately. "Your species continues to surprise us," the ancient being admitted, translucent skin revealing the slow pulse of energy that was the elder equivalent of a heartbeat. Not merely your solutions, but your eagerness to confront impossible odds. Captain Chen shrugged. "It's what humans do. We've spent our entire history facing dangers we weren't equipped to handle. Ice ages with nothing but fur and fire, oceans with nothing but wood and cloth, space with nothing but math and metal. And you never considered simply accepting your limitations?" asked Thorak, genuine curiosity in his ancient voice. Dr. Okafor laughed. "Accepting limitations isn't really in our nature, Elder. We tend to see them more as suggestions." Before Thorak could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. A void incursion had been detected, earlier than predicted, larger than anticipated, and headed directly for a densely populated sector controlled by the Vor Collective. "They're adapting," muttered Captain Chen, already moving toward the command center. "Targeting population centers now. We need to deploy immediately." Within hours, a hastily assembled fleet, human vessels alongside Concordat ships, modified to carry the primitive but effective anti-void technology, was en route to the threatened sector. The journey would take days, even with the Concordat's advanced propulsion systems. Millions of lives hung in the balance. Upon arrival, they found devastation beyond imagination. The void had already consumed 3 inhabited planets, leaving nothing but empty space where vibrant worlds had once orbited. The 4th planet in the system, Vor Prime, home to over 2 billion sentient beings, was already partially engulfed. "Deploy the disruptors," ordered Captain Chen, her voice steady despite the horror unfolding before them. "All ships maintain formation Delta. Target the void's leading edge." The fleet moved into position, their electromagnetic disruptors powering up. But something was wrong. The readings were different from the previous encounter. The void's energy signature had changed. "It's not working," reported Dr. Okafor, her fingers flying over the control panels. "The resonance pattern we established is no longer effective. The void has adapted." For a moment, despair threatened to overcome the assembled forces. If the void could adapt to their countermeasures, what hope did they have? It was a junior human officer, Lieutenant Raj Patel, who offered an unexpected solution. "If it can adapt to specific frequencies, let's give it all of them at once," he suggested. "Not a single disruption pattern, but thousands, random, unpredictable, constantly changing." The concept was quickly translated into action. The fleet's disruptors were reconfigured to generate not a single electromagnetic pattern, but a chaotic storm of frequencies, intensities, and modulations. No pattern, no predictability, just pure electromagnetic chaos. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The void continued its inexorable consumption of Vor Prime. Then, gradually, almost imperceptibly, its advance slowed. The darkness began to ripple, to distort, as if confused by the barrage of contradictory signals assaulting it. "It's working," exclaimed Dr. Okafor. "The void can adapt to a specific countermeasure, but it can't adapt to random chaos." For 3 days, the fleet maintained their assault, pouring every ounce of available power into their disruptors. Slowly, painfully, the void began to retreat, not collapsing as before, but withdrawing, releasing its hold on the partially consumed planet. When it finally disappeared, nearly half of Vor Prime remained, a broken, wounded world, but one where billions still lived. The cost had been tremendous. Dozens of ships lost, hundreds of lives sacrificed. But compared to the alternative, it was a victory beyond price. In the aftermath, as rescue operations commenced and the surviving Vor expressed their profound gratitude, Admiral K. Vash sought out Captain Chen. "Your lieutenant's insight saved billions today," the metallic being acknowledged. "This chaos strategy is unlike anything in our tactical doctrines." Chen nodded, watching as human and alien medical teams worked side by side to treat the injured. "Chaos is something humans understand intimately, Admiral. We live our entire lives surrounded by it. Natural disasters, political upheavals, economic collapses. We don't try to eliminate chaos. We learn to function within it." Vash considered this, his metallic features reflecting the stars. The Concordat has spent millennia imposing order on the galaxy. Perhaps that has been our weakness against this enemy. Over the following weeks, the chaos strategy was refined and implemented across threatened sectors. The void continued to appear, but each time it was met with unpredictable resistance. Electromagnetic disruptors generating random patterns, decoy ships creating false targets, even primitive nuclear devices used to create spatial distortions that confused the void's expansion patterns. No two defenses were exactly alike. No response followed a predictable pattern. It was organized chaos, a concept that many Concordat species found almost contradictory, yet one that humans implemented with intuitive ease. Gradually, a pattern emerged. The void incursions became less frequent, less aggressive. Whatever intelligence guided them seemed to be reassessing the value of harvesting a universe that fought back with such unpredictable ferocity. 3 months after the Battle of Vor Prime, sensors detected something unprecedented. A void forming, but then voluntarily collapsing, as if its controller had decided against the incursion. 2 weeks later, it happened again. And again. "They're testing us," suggested Dr. Okafor during a strategy session on Arcadia. "Probing our defenses, looking for patterns, weaknesses." "And finding none," added Captain Chen, a grim satisfaction in her voice. "Because we're not giving them any." Elder Thorak, who had lived through millennia of galactic history, regarded the humans with a new appreciation. "In all my existence, I have never witnessed a species so naturally suited to asymmetric warfare. You have turned unpredictability into a weapon more powerful than any in our arsenal." Dr. Okafor smiled. "It's not just unpredictability, Elder. It's adaptability. Humans have faced extinction multiple times in our evolution. Those who survived weren't the strongest or the smartest. They were the ones who could adapt the fastest." The Qualathi representative, Ktala, who had initially been among the most dismissive of human capabilities, now spoke with reluctant admiration. "Your species lacks our technological advancement, our longevity, our psychic abilities. Yet you possess something perhaps more valuable: the capacity to embrace change rather than resist it." "Necessity is the mother of invention," quoted Lieutenant Patel, who had been promoted after his insight at Vor Prime. "It's an old Earth saying." 6 months later, the last void incursion was detected, probed the defenses briefly, and withdrew. None have been seen since. The Galactic Concordat, for the first time in its long history, convened a special session to consider an unprecedented proposal: the inclusion of Earth as the 8th member of their elite alliance. The debate was heated, with traditionalists arguing that humans lack the technological sophistication required for membership. Elder Thorak, speaking in favor of the proposal, silenced the opposition with a single question: "What is the purpose of the Concordat, if not to protect and preserve life in our galaxy? And who has proven more committed to that purpose than these humans, who came to our aid when we needed it most?" The vote was unanimous. In a ceremony broadcast across thousands of worlds, Captain Maya Chen and Dr. Amara Okafor stood before the assembled representatives of the 7 most advanced civilizations in the known universe, no longer as primitive curiosities, but as equals. As Thorak presented them with the Concordat emblem, his ancient eyes held a respect that transcended the vast differences between their species. "You have taught us something we had forgotten in our long ascendance," the elder intoned. "That true advancement is not measured by the sophistication of one's technology, but by the strength of one's spirit. When the darkness came, when hope seemed lost, when the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy stood paralyzed by fear, humans were the only ones who answered." Captain Chen accepted the emblem with characteristic humility. "We were just doing what humans have always done, Elder. Facing the impossible and finding a way through." As the ceremony concluded, Dr. Okafor gazed out at the assembled representatives, beings of crystal and energy, synthetic and organic, ancient beyond human comprehension. Yet now, they looked to her species not with condescension, but with respect, perhaps even with hope. Humanity had found its place among the stars not through technological superiority or military might, but through their unique perspective, their willingness to challenge the impossible, to embrace chaos, to adapt when others could only despair. In the vastness of space, amid civilizations that had existed for millennia, humanity had proven that sometimes the youngest voice has the wisest words. That sometimes the simplest solution is the most profound. That sometimes, when darkness threatens to consume everything, the light of human determination burns brightest of all. And somewhere, beyond the boundaries of their universe, the entities that had sought to harvest their reality had learned a valuable lesson. Some resources are simply too costly to obtain. Some prey fights back too fiercely to be worth pursuing. Some worlds, like a small blue planet at the edge of an unremarkable galaxy, harbor species with spirits too indomitable to ever be truly conquered. For in our darkest hour, when the most advanced beings in the galaxy stood helpless, humans were the only ones who answered. Not because they were the strongest or the wisest or the most advanced, but because they refused to accept that anything, even the end of reality itself, was truly impossible.